Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So today's video is a equipment one, a kit one, and this is the very first impression of my new Nikon Z8. So my first impressions of this camera, and I know there's been loads of videos done about the Z8, but this is my take on it. I've had this camera for about, I don't know, 5 or 6 weeks now, and as I say, it's not going to be an in-depth review. That'll come later on once I've been using it for a long time. But at the moment, I wanted to give a first impressions of what I think of this camera body. And first of all, the build quality and ergonomics. It's lovely to hold. It feels really nicely in the hand. The buttons are in the right place. It's really solid. And it's going to stand up to quite a bit of battering, I think. So build quality is definitely a tick for me. Anyone that's been watching my channel for a while will know that for the last couple of years I've been shooting with a D500, but mainly a Nikon Z6 II. I've sold the Z6 II and I've bought the Z8, and there's a few reasons, but the main reason was the obviously the improved autofocus. So that's the first thing we're going to look at or discuss, is how much better the autofocus is on the Z8 now. So let's talk about the autofocus. Now the reason I switched to the Z8 is because it's got animal eye detect. Now for anyone that's been watching my channel for the last couple of years, you'll know that I was shooting on a Nikon D500 and a Nikon Z6 II, and most of the stills and all the videos all my videos were mainly shot using the Nikon Z6 II. So it did have a very good autofocus system, and you can see that I've got lots of sharp pictures, but the fact of the matter is it didn't have animal eye detect, and the Z8 has, and that's the reason, one of the reasons I wanted the Z8. And in the last few days there's also been a firmware update, so not only have we got animal eye detect, we've now got the bird eye detect, which the Nikon Z9's got. So does it work? Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. I have to say, the eye detect, I'm tending to use a large area rather than the whole screen. I'm helping the autofocus out, so I'm not using every autofocus point. I'm using a large area, which is like a rectangular box, and I get the box on the animal, it picks out the eye, and then I switch to 3D tracking. That's, I think, a red shank just gone across, which is lovely. And I'm finding that the 3D tracking is working really well, even on some complex situations. And if you look at this shot of a red shank coming up, that was taken through, there was some grass in the foreground, but it was still, it still picked up the eye of the red shank, and it still kept that red shank in focus. So I'm really pleased with that. It seems to be picking up birds in flight very, very well as well. I need to have a good look at the pictures. As I say, this is literally my first impressions of the Nikon Z8, and so it's not an in-depth review at the moment. I will do one when I've had the camera for a lot longer, but first impressions are the eye detect works great. The bird eye detect seems to work really great for birds now. Animal eye detect was working very well without the bird eye detect, but it's great to have both. The 3D tracking is, once it's on that eye, it seems to stick on the eye, unless the background is really, really complex. But even then, it seems to be doing a good job. Now, it's not going to be 100% successful, but it's looking as if it's going to be successful enough for me anyway. So that's good. Autofocus system is really excellent. And as I say, the way I'm doing this is I'm having generally, I'm setting it on a large area, which is a rectangular box. I get the animal in the box. I focus normally. I'm not using back button focus anymore, so I'm focusing on the shutter button. And then I've got the AF on button on the back. That's set to 3D tracking now. So once I've acquired the focus on the animal, I press the AF on button at the back, which used to be for back button focusing, but not anymore. And that brings in 3D tracking, and then that 3D tracking will track the animal as it moves around the frame, and as I move the camera to change my compositions, and it seems to be working really well. So autofocus system, yeah, is good. Now the Z8 gives me 20 frames per second shooting RAW files, and to be honest, that's fast enough for me. So the frame rate is great. I can shoot faster than that. I can go to 30, 60 or even further or even faster, but the only problem with that would be they would be JPEG files, and I generally only shoot RAW files. So 20 frames per second in RAW. So pretty much unlimited buffer. I've not actually filled the buffer up, so that's all good. The only time I would shoot JPEG files is if I was using pre-capture, which I'm probably going to do a separate video on, but pre-capture is amazing. I'm getting pictures I would never have been able to get without pre-capture. I'm talking about sort of woodland birds taking off, or great spotted woodpeckers having a fight, or great spotted woodpeckers taking off. Things are where you're just not quick enough always to get the shots. So I can get them without pre-capture, but I'm getting a bigger success rate now. And what pre-capture basically is, when you half press the shutter button down, you're already taking pictures, and you're taking 1 second's worth of pictures. And you have to set 30 frames per second on the Nikon. So that means when I hit the shutter button, to capture that piece of fast action, I've already taken 30 pictures. So it means that if I'm too slow to hit the shutter button and that bird's taken off and it's almost out the frame, I've still got it captured, because I've got 30 pictures prior to hitting the shutter button. And the beauty of it is, once I get to 31 pictures, it dumps the first one. So you've only ever got 30 pictures. So you haven't got thousands and thousands of pictures to wade through. So pre-capture is brilliant. I would just love it if you could do pre-capture using RAW files, but we don't get that option at the moment. But it's such a good tool to use occasionally, not all the time, but occasionally, that I'm still using it, even though it's giving me JPEG files. But yeah, pre-capture is the only time I'm using JPEGs. Aside from that, I'm shooting RAW files, and 20 frames a second is easily enough for the sort of photography I do. So yeah, no complaints there. As you would expect, the image quality is stunning. This is a 45 million pixel sensor. The colours are great, the details are great. And if you look at a picture of this J, now the J was close, and I took this picture on using the Z8 and my new 180-600 zoom lens, which I'm going to talk about in another video, because I've had this only a few days. But look at the quality. The quality is absolutely brilliant. I haven't tried a shot this close with my 600mm prime, but I will do. But the fact of the matter is, the sensor's great. That 45 million pixel sensor is giving so much fine detail, it's unbelievable. The only thing I have noticed though is, compared to my 24 million pixel sensor on the Z6 II, when I had that, the noise is a little bit more noticeable because there's more pixels, there are smaller pixels crunched onto the same size sensor. So the only downside with the bigger megapixels, so the 45 million megapixels against the 24, is you do get a little bit more noise on the higher resolution sensor, but that can be taken care of post-production anyway. And as I say, the fine detail on this sensor is brilliant, so I'm loving the quality. Also, having the extra pixels does give you more opportunity to crop if your subject's a bit too far away. So yeah, sensor quality, image quality, absolutely superb. I mentioned earlier in this video that I didn't feel that the high ISO noise control on Z8 was as good as the Z6 II, and this is because of the higher density pixel sensor. So in other words, it was a 45 megapixel sensor as opposed to a 24 megapixel sensor. But the thing is, it's still really good. Even though I don't feel it's quite as good as the Z6 II, it's still very, very good. And if you look at these two pictures of the nuthatch, the first one was shot at ISO 1000, which is still quite a high ISO. And you can see the noise control is very good. And then if you look at the second picture, yes, it is noisy, but this was taken at 12,800 ISO, so that's very high. And there's been no noise reduction done whatsoever. These pictures are straight out the camera. As are all the pictures in this video actually. There's been a little bit of cropping here and there, but generally they're out the camera. So there's been no major processing done whatsoever. So I think it's important on a video like this not to mess around with the files too much. They're out the camera, and some of them are JPEG files, some of them are RAW files. But as I say, there's been no major processing done, a little bit of cropping here and there. So as you can see, that even though I feel the noise control isn't quite as good as the smaller density sensor of the Z6 II, it's still really good, and I'm more than happy with the high ISO performance of the Z8. It's a great camera. The EVF, the electronic viewfinder, is really crisp and clear, and it's blackout free. So in other words, you don't get a blackout between frames, which makes it really good for when you're panning with fast moving action. So that's a definite improvement, having a blackout free viewfinder. And as I say, the EVF is really clear and crisp. The screen on the back of the camera obviously is good. Again, good colours, nice and sharp, good for reviewing the images you've already taken. So all in all, I think this is an absolutely brilliant camera. My first impressions are that the Nikon Z8 is absolutely superb. Now, I'm not getting paid for this review. I buy all my own kit. I've not been lent this by anyone, so I've actually bought this camera. You know, I've not always been, I've been critical of Nikon in the past, so it's not like I just, you know, I praise everything they do. This is sort of an honest first impressions video about the Nikon Z8, and as I say, my first impressions are this is a camera I'm going to get to really enjoy. I'm already really enjoy using. It's going to be great for wildlife and action. It's also going to be great for my landscape photography because the sensor is so detailed. It's got such a great quality of sensor. So all in all, yes, for both landscapes, wildlife, action, I think this is a great all-round camera. Video capability of the Z8 is great. There's a 4K 120, which means I can shoot slow motion in 120 now, whereas before I had 120 in HD, so I've got 4K 120. You can sample down from 4K, which is great, and then obviously you've got different frame rates. You've got 120, you've got 60 frames per second, you've got 30, 25, 24. So all the bases are covered. Not only that, but I can shoot in sort of like an N-Log type format, which means I can get a better dynamic range, but that does mean I'd need to colour grade, which I'm not sure I'm going to be doing at the moment. But fact of the matter is, for all the video I do, this body is going to more than cover my video needs. One thing I didn't mention when I was talking about video is the fact that the Nikon Z8 has got fantastic image stabilization. Now, if you look at this clip of a J, I took this handheld using a 180 to 600mm zoom lens, and I was shooting at the 600mm end, and although it's not as stable as it would be if I was using a tripod and a fluid head, it's still pretty good. So this means I can shoot video using the 600mm end of my zoom handheld, which I think is a remarkable achievement. Now, if you look at this last clip, that was taken with the camera on a tripod and a fluid head, and as you can see, it is much more stable than it would be handheld. But you know, even so, the ability to handhold at 600mm I think is fantastic. I hope you've found this video interesting, and if you have enjoyed it, if you can give it a like, a thumbs up, that would be great. That always helps my channel. And if you haven't already subscribed, if you could think about subscribing, that would be brilliant. It's more the merrier. And then last but not least, if you've got any of your own thoughts on any of Nikon kit or any kit that you use actually that you're really happy with, let me know in the comment section below. So yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll speak to you on my next video. So bye for now, guys.